And speaking of the SEC, I want to transition to the southern part of the country. Texas, to me, has the perfect team entering this season. I don't think that they have any weaknesses. They have depth all over the place. We should expect that Arch Manning plays at a really high level. Steve Sarkisian is a capable coach. It's just he's yet to break through. But as good as what Texas has the ability to be, Kirby Smart still feels like he's going to be the kryptonite to this team. Just like how Alabama is his kryptonite. For some reason, when Steve Sarkisian plays against Georgia, he just gets tight. It seems like he kind of gets lost at times because one thing about Georgia, when they play Texas, they get after it. I'm talking about they're sending everybody at the quarterback. They threw a lot of exotic looks at you, and they're really aggressive. And Georgia's offense was stuck in the mud against Texas, and they still won that game. And they did it on the road in Austin, of all places, with a down squad. And then in the SEC championship, you're probably thinking, nah, with a team as talented as Texas, no way they're going to lose to Georgia twice. And Georgia still beats them. So does Texas have the ability to really win this conference, beating Georgia in the process? Or ultimately, would Georgia be the downfall of Texas being able to take home the SEC crown this year?
I think something that plays into Georgia's hands is the fact that Georgia has two de facto coordinators. So, Mike Bobo calls the offense and Glenn Schumann, I'm pretty sure that Glenn Schumann calls the defense. Let me fact check myself here.
Either him or Muschamp.
Yeah, and Muschamp right now. Oh, yep, he has been calling plays for the Georgia defense. Okay, just making sure because Smart, I view Smart and Knowles as like the top two defensive minds in football. Like Smart's a savant, so wouldn't shock me if he were calling plays at times. But I thought it was Schumann. Anyway, Sark is the de facto OC, along with being the head coach, and Pete Kwiatkowski is the defensive coordinator. So Sark's mind is to be spread out more than Kirby's does, and also more than Georgia's coordinators do. Like he's taken on a lot more. And Kirby is no doubt the better game manager. Like just when
Yeah.
watching him versus Sark manage games is incredible. Like Kirby Smart last year, the only game where they really got physically destroyed was Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss, yeah.
That was it. Every other team, they physically at the end of the day were either, winning or gaining momentum. The problem was against Notre Dame. They lost the turnover battle and had a backup QB. And against Alabama, Beck turned it over, I think, like 4 times. So you can't have that. I think that Texas is the better roster right now. I think Texas is the better recruiting program. And I think Texas's assistant staff might be a tad bit better. But that's at that point you're within margin of error. Like Georgia could have the better assistant staff. The problem is Georgia has the far better head coach. No one is better at managing games and at preparing for games than Kirby Smart. No one is. Absolutely no one. The fact that they went 2-1 in games where Carson Beck had 3 turnovers or more, where he threw 3 interceptions. They went 2-1 in those games. One was Texas on the road, one was Florida neutral field, and the loss was Alabama, where they lost by a possession. They didn't even get blown out, even though initially it looked like it. I think that Georgia will be a thorn in anyone's side that they play. So if they got past Notre Dame, I think they would have beaten Penn State the way Notre Dame did, where Penn State's clearly this better team, but Georgia's just hanging in there, and then boom. And given how Ohio State played against Notre Dame, who's to say that Kirby Smart in Georgia wouldn't have, maybe found a way to exploit that O-line a little bit more because their D-line was better than Georgia's, and they get Ryan Day to overthink the game. Just Smart is an absolute menace, and how you beat him is you're either Nick Saban or you have a really critical matchup advantage roster to roster. Because you will never have the head coach versus head coach game planning. That will never happen. I mean, even last year when it looked like Freeman got the best of Smart on that special teams play, They just didn't call the false start.
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame's wide receiver fell back before
Luck of the
Georgia.
Irish, as they want to say.
Yeah, it just you'll never have the coaching edge. So Texas is on the right path to potentially overcome that because they, I think, are at a point where they're recruiting better, and I think they're developing rather well. I mean, they're the only team over the past 2 seasons to put double-digit draft picks in. They just reload. They're the closest thing, I think, from a talent perspective. They're the closest thing to the old Bama teams. They're not even close. They're not, but I don't think anyone
In
is.
terms of the size, the sheer athleticism, the kind of depth. It's like when you see Texas walking out the tunnel, it's like, oh snap, this is Texas. Oh, okay, yeah, they're definitely back, all right.
Yeah. And you know why they can do that? You know why they can stack that much talent? Because, and you probably are like thinking in your head, oh, he's going to talk about the Lamborghinis and the
The
NIL.
oil
Well,
money.
of course I am. Yeah, the oil money. They can they can pay high schoolers stupid amounts because they're paying everyone on their roster stupid amounts. Like Georgia can't do that. Alabama can't do that. Ohio State can't do
And you
that.
want to know what
Like,
I noticed? I didn't mean to cut you off. On three
no, you're
poster
good.
graphic of college football's biggest spenders, Georgia and Alabama were not on the list. Texas and Texas Tech were like the top two or top three. And eventually, we know that Steve Sarkisian is a good coach. And we know that Texas is a talented team. And eventually, it'll get to a point where you kind of will be able to see it. It's only so much that coaching can make up for it, because they always say in college football, it's not always about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes.
Yeah, I think here's what I think. If they meet up 3 times, Sark will win the third game because Texas is deeper and they're older and their schedule is easier. So they won't suffer the same amount of injuries. They'll gain more and more experience as the year goes on. They're returning a running back in CJ Baxter from injury. And Manning is younger than Stockton and also has a way higher ceiling. So the longer they play, the more that Manning will separate from Stockton.
And I think Arch will
Um,
handle Kirby Smart's defense a lot better than what Quinn Ewers did, because Ewers
well,
was
yeah.
kind of paranoid against that front.
Well, Ewers had no pocket presence. Nope. I mean, that was the difference between Ohio State and Texas. Like Texas, even in that game on the lines of scrimmage, was bigger and better than Ohio State, at least O line wise. I think Ohio State had the better starting D line at least. But Howard had eyes in the back of his head, so he could just dodge anyone. I mean, against Michigan, he got pressured almost 30 times and didn't take a sack. Ewers, every time he gets pressured, he takes a sack. And Manning could be that because he got pressured a ton and didn't handle it well last year. But if he just is able to gain football IQ, he should be able to handle it better because of the, higher ceiling, the fact that, he has some of the best, training him in
Yeah,
his family. And if he can't handle it well, he has mobility. So maybe you can, run him more and give the rushing offense a second or third option instead of what Texas had last year, where with the banged up running back room and a quarterback with a leg injury, whenever they ran the ball, kind of everyone knew it was coming and they struggled to run it.
exactly why they couldn't punch it in against Ohio State in the red zone, and they had that scoop and score by Jack Sawyer.